The matchup we have all been waiting for is finally here. What is going on, y'all? 5 Sports Talk back at it with another video talking, of course, some NBA. Here to talk more NBA playoffs and here to talk about the Western Conference Finals matchup that is now officially set between the Warriors and the Rockets. And we have been waiting for this matchup since the damn NBA season started back in October, really. And again, I don't think anybody needs to take credit for any predictions if they predicted the Warriors to be here, if they predicted the Rockets to be here, because like I said, everybody predicted them to be here, okay? The Eastern Conference, that's another discussion for another day, okay? And quite frankly, this series could be the finals. When I say the finals, I mean this series could be the equivalent of how exciting an NBA finals should be, because we know that both these teams are arguably better than whatever team comes out of the East, even though the Cavs have looked really good. So we just have to savor in the moment here because both these teams are phenomenal. And I'm here to break down the matchup, what exactly you can expect from the Warriors and the Rockets. Both of these teams who have been expecting to get to this point, the Rockets more than anyone, because they have been assembling this team just to take on the Warriors. So with that being said, let's talk matchups, let's talk key players, let's talk predictions, and let's talk my overall preview. So with that being said, let's get started. So, funny enough, both these teams have won and lost the same amount of games in the playoffs. So the Rockets, of course, beat the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games, and then they beat the Utah Jazz in 5 games, so they're 10-2. And the Warriors beat the Spurs in the first round in 5 games, and then they beat the Pelicans in 5 games in round 2. And they are, of course, 10-2 as well. So funny enough, just thought I'd throw that out there. But with that being said, let's take a look and start with the lineups, okay? So we all know the starting 5 of the Rockets. We've got CP3, James Harden, PJ Tucker, or I guess I should say Trevor Ariza, then PJ Tucker and Clint Capella. So they don't really have a traditional power forward, if you will. Their only traditional big is Clint Capella. Okay, so that is their starting 5. The Warriors starting 5 has changed from the first round to the second round. Okay, the first round they started JaVale McGee against the Spurs because they were going up against a team with more size in the Spurs with LaMarcus Aldridge. But in round 2, the Pelicans went small, so they Warriors and Steve Kerr opted to go small with the death lineup, the Hamptons 5 as we know it, which is Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, Kevin Durant, and Draymond Green at center. Okay, so what are my expectations for the lineups in this matchup? The Rockets are going to keep the same lineup, I believe, okay? So they're not going to change. But the decision here will be, what do the Warriors decide to do? Do they decide to go small or do they decide to go big? Okay, because if they do decide to go small, that means Clint Capella. Are you trying to take him out of the game or not? Because the death lineup has been working, but I believe Steve Kerr only used this lineup for this specific matchup, okay? So what is my best guess? I think he does go back to a big, but over JaVale McGee, I think it might be Kevon Looney, who's been playing really well off the bench. So maybe look to see him start and maybe have Andre Iguodala go back to the bench, okay? Because here's the thing. Warriors can try and take Clint Capella out of the game, but I just feel like Clint Capella is way too underrated, and I have too much respect for him. He's been absolutely phenomenal in these playoffs. He outplayed Karl Anthony Towns, and he outplayed Rudy Gobert, okay? So he is the Draymond of the Rockets. Now, of course, he can't shoot as well as Draymond, but you get my point. He does everything, especially on the defensive end, and he is a perfect fit for their system. So I don't think they will be able to completely take Clint Capella out of the game, which is why I think they will go back to a bigger lineup with Kevon Looney and or JaVale McGee, okay? So with that being said, let's take a look at the benches. We'll start with the Rockets. You got Eric Gordon, Nene, Luke Richard Mbah-a-Moute, Ryan Anderson, Gerald Green. I mean, the rotation, you really don't want to get past, 8 to 10 guys, really, even 8 guys, okay? So that's really the guys that are getting the majority of the minutes. And then with the Warriors, you, of course, have, like I said, McGee. Zaza Pachulia hasn't been in the rotation. He could maybe see some minutes against the Rockets. Nick Young, same thing as well. Then you've got Quinn Cook, Sean Livingston, Kevon Looney, like I mentioned, and David West. Okay, so let's compare the starters versus the bench. Now, of course, the starting lineup, if you go one by one, Steph Curry versus Chris Paul. I mean, you would say Steph Curry here, but Chris Paul has been balling out, and especially in that game 5 against the Utah Jazz. My God, did he put on a show with, I believe, 41 points and 10 assists and no turnovers. He was unbelievable. So I'm not gonna give Steph Curry the clear advantage here. I think this is a wash. I think this is a push. Steph is the better player, yes, but Chris Paul can hold his own, okay? So no real clear advantage there. Then you got Harden versus Clay. This advantage does go to the Rockets. James Harden's going to be the MVP. He is the better player. Klay Thompson's a better defender, better shooter, but Harden is the better overall player. Trevor Ariza versus Kevin Durant. Next, Kevin Durant. Then you have Andre Iguodala. Well, I should say this should be Draymond Green. I'm going to go with the traditional lineup, okay? We'll go Draymond Green versus PJ Tucker. This is Draymond Green. And then you'll have Clint Capella versus Kevon Looney or McGee, and that's going to go to Clint Capella. So really, it's 3-2 basically in favor of the Warriors, but potentially 2-2 if you even out CP3 and Steph, okay? So more of an even matchup than you would think, okay? And then bench-wise, whose bench do I like more? I do like Eric Gordon as the best player out of the entire benches of both teams, but he's been very streaky. Nene has been okay. Mamute and Ryan Anderson have had their spots here and there, but I think I like the Warriors bench a little bit more. Quinn Cook and Sean Livingston have been good off the bench. David West can come in and give you solid 10-15 minutes. And Nick Young, you know he can get hot anytime. So overall, roster-wise, Warriors roster is still better, but it's closer than you think. With that being said, let's move on to the next thing. So the next thing I'm going to be talking about is matchups, okay? That is going to determine this series, okay? Couple of key things I'm looking at. The Rockets do have the requisite weapons to try and contain Kevin Durant. Again, I said contain. Nobody can slow down Kevin Durant. The man is 7 feet tall, okay, and he can pull up from 30 in the words of Stephen A. Smith, okay? So Kevin Durant is unguardable, but can you try and contain him? The Pelicans tried to double team him. That worked for a little bit, but then he got his own. So Kevin Durant is going to score. Can you contain him? The Rockets have some wing players to throw at him, and that is the difference with this Rockets team outside of Chris Paul, of course, this year. You've got PJ Tucker, Trevor Ariza, you've got Luke Richard and Mbah a Moute. You've got versatile wing defenders, and during the regular season, Trevor Ariza, he did hold his own against Kevin Durant, and I think he can do a solid job. Again, nobody's going to stop KD, but I think they can do a solid job of containing Kevin Durant. The Pelicans had literally nobody to guard Kevin Durant. They had Drew Holiday on him. Drew Holiday is way too short. So at least you have got lankier guys like Luke Richard, Mbah a Moute, PJ Tucker, and Trevor Ariza to maybe slow down KD, okay? The next matchup I'm looking at is James Harden versus Klay Thompson. Now, again, in this situation, nobody can stop James Harden, of course. He is an offensive genius, but can Klay contain him? I believe what Klay does best against James Harden is he doesn't let Harden get to the free throw line, okay? And that's important because, you know, Harden eats at the free throw line a lot. He gets a lot of his points off of the free throw line. So if Klay can just stop Harden from getting to the free throw line, that's a win for the Warriors. Because, again, just like KD's going to get his, Harden's going to get his, okay? Moving on, I am looking at the point guard matchup now with Chris Paul versus Steph Curry. I have a lot of respect for Chris Paul, especially on the defensive end. I think he is arguably the best defender at the point guard position. I play daily fantasy sports. You guys know this. If you don't, and I always try to avoid the guy that CP3 is going up against, okay, because I think CP3 has that shutdown ability. Now, of course, we are talking about the two-time MVP Steph Curry here, so no, you can't stop him either. But can Chris Paul slow him down? I believe he can do a decent job of containing Steph Curry. I think Steph's going to have some struggles in this matchup. I believe when they matched up in the regular season, I think CP3 contained Steph to under 40% shooting. So again, if he can just contain Steph relatively well, this is going to be a win for the Rockets as well. And then finally, we've got the whole situation of going big versus small because the Rockets do have Clint Capella. Ultimately, like I said, I do think the Warriors end up going big. Now, there will be times when they go up with a smaller lineup, but ultimately, I think they will end up going big. And I think Clint Capella is going to have a good series. If they do end up going big, if they go small, obviously, we'll see how that plays out. But with that being said, both these teams have great shooters on the outside. Both these teams have great ball penetrators. The real advantage for the Warriors is going to be now in this series if CP3 is able to contain Steph Curry and if Ariza is able to contain KD, then you can expect maybe Klay to have a very good series, and Draymond is going to obviously get free, and he's going to have a lot of looks. So maybe Draymond and Klay Thompson have a good series here just based off how I'm looking at the matchups. And then on the other side, I think CP3 is going to be a big difference for the Rockets because, like I said, Steph Curry's not as good of a defender as Chris Paul is, so Chris Paul can get his own on the offensive end. So you take a look at that, and that's going to play a part into it. So ultimately, what do I see here happening? Okay, this is going to be, I think, a longer series than people expect. I know Charles Barkley said on TNT, NBA on TNT, that it's going to be a very short, quick 5-game series. I don't see it that way. I think Houston's been preparing for this moment since the season started, since they acquired Chris Paul, basically. Everything they've done has been for this moment right here, so I don't expect them to just fall flat on their face and get run out of the gym by the Warriors. I'm predicting a 6-game series, okay? Warriors in 6 games, okay? Ultimately, the Warriors are still a cheat code team, folks. They have 4 potential Hall of Famers, 4 All-Stars on this team. At some point, talent just wins out, and ultimately, this is what happens here with the Warriors, okay? The Rockets have the best record, so home court advantage is their one advantage in this series as well. But I'm going to give you guys my game-by-game pick. So, Game 1, I think the Rockets just pour their heart out into it because they've been waiting for this moment. They're at home. I think they win Game 1. Then I think the Warriors make some adjustments, bounce back in Game 2. Then I think the Warriors take off in Games 3 and 4. Now remember, you might think, Fives, you're giving them 3 in a row. Yes, because the Warriors are a team that gets bored a lot, okay? So when you push this Warriors team, they flat out perform, okay? And that's what's going to happen. Game 1's going to go to Houston. They're going to get pushed. They're going to move on to go ahead and play better in Games 3 and 4. So I have the Warriors taking that. Rockets come back and take Game 5 at home. And then Game 6, I think the Warriors close it out at home in front of their home crowd and move on to the NBA Finals. So there you have it, folks. My prediction for the Western Conference Finals between the Warriors and the Rockets. Again, regardless of what happens, I just want to see a damn good series, and I think we're going to get one because these are the 2 best teams in the NBA, and it's going to be unbelievable to watch them play. I'm ready to see all the matchups. I'm ready to see CP3 and Steph Curry go at it. I'm ready to see the Warriors potentially play around with their death lineup. KD, what he does, Harden, what he does. Is he going to come up big? Because he's shrunk a lot in these big moments. There's so many storylines at play here. I love it. You love this as an NBA fan. This is what you've been waiting for. So again, with that being said, my pick is the Warriors in 6 games. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below on your thoughts on who is going to win this series and why. Let's debate. Let's talk about it. If you guys have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on post notifications if you guys want to stay tuned with all my latest NBA playoff videos. With that being said, make sure to hit me up on my social media as well. Twitter, I'm very active on there. Instagram, I'm active on there as well. With that being said, thank you for watching.